Not everything Joseph Murphy shared was meant for the world. The books, the sermons, the Sunday lectures, those were gifts to the masses. But there was another layer, a deeper room, one that most people never knew existed, behind closed doors in quiet rooms. With only a handful of trusted students seated before him, Murphy spoke differently. His voice dropped lower. His words carried a different weight. What he said in those moments was not soft encouragement. It was not gentle inspiration. It was the raw mechanics of a law so precise, so powerful, that he believed most people were simply not ready to receive it. Tonight, you will receive it, not because it is being handed carelessly, but because you are here. And those who find their way to these words do not do so by accident. Something within you already senses that what you have been given publicly has not been enough. That beneath the affirmations, beneath the prayers, beneath the morning routines and the motivational quotes, there is a deeper engine running. A law that does not care about your effort, your goodness, or your desperation. A law that only responds to one thing, what you truly believe in the silence of your own mind. That is what Murphy taught in private, and that is what you are about to hear now. Prepare yourself, not with excitement, but with stillness, for what follows is not content. It is a key, and once a key turns in the right lock, there is no going back to the life you lived before it opened. Now we begin. There are things I only said once, in private to those I trusted. I said them quietly because the world was not ready. Most still are not. But you are different. I can see it. Not in what you have accomplished, but in what you are still reaching for. That reaching, that restlessness, that refusal to accept that this is all there is, that is the signal. That is how I always knew who was ready. So let me tell you what I held back. The subconscious mind is not simply a tool. It is not a servant waiting obediently in the basement of your being. It is a force of such magnitude, such terrifying precision, that if you understood it fully, you would never speak carelessly again. Not once. You would guard every thought the way a soldier guards a gate in wartime. Because the enemy does not need to break through the front. The enemy is already inside, and most people have been feeding it for years without realizing what they have done. Here is what I told my private students. Here is the truth I never printed. Every single thing in your life right now is the expressed result of something you once impressed, not what you wished for. Not what you prayed for out loud, not what you told your friends you wanted, but what you actually, deeply, silently believed to be true about yourself. The subconscious does not listen to your words. It listens to your conviction, and conviction lies not in the mouth, but in the marrow. I once sat with a man who was brilliant by every measure, educated, talented, driven. He had tried everything, every strategy, every course, every method. Yet failure followed him with an almost supernatural consistency. He sat before me exhausted and asked the question I had heard 100 times. Why does nothing work for me? I did not answer immediately. I asked him instead what he said to himself in the hour before sleep. He looked uncomfortable. He admitted, almost in a whisper, that he spent those hours rehearsing everything that could go wrong the next day, imagining the calls that would not come. The deals that would collapse, the people who would disappoint him. I told him plainly, you have been praying every night for failure, and your subconscious, loyal and tireless, has answered you with stunning accuracy. He looked at me as though I had struck him, and I let the silence sit, because some truths need a moment to land before you can speak again. This is the private teaching that changes everything. You are always praying. Always. There is no moment when the subconscious is not receiving your impressions. Your fears are prayers, your resentments are prayers, your quiet certainty that you do not deserve more, that people like you do not get the life you want, that good things happen for others, but not for you. These are the most powerful prayers of all, and they are answered with ruthless faithfulness. The moment a person understands this, truly understands it, one of two things happens. Either they are gripped by terror because they see the wreckage their own mind has created, or they are flooded with a fierce and urgent hope because they realize that if the law was working against them this powerfully, It will work for them with equal power the moment they take command. That is the gift hidden inside the most frightening truth I ever taught. Now, I want to tell you something I revealed only to those who could handle it. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. This is not poetry. This is not metaphor. It is the literal operating principle of the deepest layer of your mind. When you imagine something with enough feeling, enough repetition, enough emotional vividness, the subconscious accepts it as fact, and once it accepts something as fact, it begins immediately to arrange the circumstances of your life to match that fact. I taught a young woman who had been ill for years. Not gravely ill, but depleted, tired in a way that sleep could not fix. She had prayed for healing. She had visited doctors. She had done everything right on the outside. But inwardly, in the quiet of her imagination, she had come to think of herself as a sick person. Sickness had become her identity. She did not just have an illness. She was the illness. And the subconscious, hearing this identity, repeated daily with the full weight of feeling behind it, had made it permanent. I did not give her medicine. I gave her a new identity. I told her to spend the last 15 minutes before sleep, every night without exception, imagining herself well, not hoping to be well someday, not asking to be well, but seeing with the eyes of her imagination a version of herself already walking in complete health, feeling the strength in her limbs, hearing herself laugh without effort, seeing the color in her own face, feeling the particular joy of a body that works the way it was meant to work. She resisted at first because it felt dishonest. Her senses told her she was sick. Her history told her she was sick. How could she imagine otherwise? I told her this. The senses report the past. They show you only what has already been impressed. But imagination reaches forward. Imagination speaks directly to the subconscious in its own language. And the subconscious does not argue with a vivid feeling. It accepts it and goes to work. She obeyed. For weeks, she whispered her new identity into the darkness before sleep. I am filled with divine vitality. Every cell of my body is renewed. Life flows through me perfectly and completely. She said it not as a wish, but as a decree. She said it until she could feel it. And when the feeling came, she knew the impression had landed. Within months, her body changed. Her doctors noted it. Her family saw it before she could name it. What had been her fixed, permanent reality had shifted because the subconscious had been given a new blueprint. And the subconscious, once impressed, cannot help but express this is the law, not hope, not inspiration, law. I must also tell you about something I rarely admitted publicly because it frightened some people when they first heard it. The subconscious mind is not contained within your body. It is not a local phenomenon locked behind your eyes. It reaches outward. It communicates below the threshold of conscious awareness with the subconscious minds of everyone around you. When you impress a belief deeply enough, it does not stay inside you. It radiates. It touches others. It draws people, events, and circumstances into alignment with the image you hold. This is why certain individuals seem to attract extraordinary fortune without apparent effort. This is why some people walk into a room and the room changes. This is why a person of quiet, unshakable faith seems to be surrounded by a different quality of life than those who are louder and more desperate. They are not luckier. They are not more favored by God. They have simply impressed their subconscious so completely with a specific image that the image has begun to radiate outward, pulling toward them everything that corresponds to it. I told my private students this directly. You are not just a receiver. You are a transmitter. And what you are broadcasting right now, in this moment, is determining what is on its way to you. Stop and consider that. What are you broadcasting? If you are broadcasting fear, even quietly, even secretly, even in thoughts you would never say aloud, the world is receiving that signal and sending back its match. If you are broadcasting certainty, abundance, peace, the expectation of good, the world receives that signal too, as within so without. This was never a spiritual slogan. It is a description of a mechanical law that operates whether you believe in it or not. There was a man in my private circle who had been passed over for promotion year after year. He believed his colleagues were against him. He spent his mental energy rehearsing resentment, imagining conversations where he finally said what he deserved to say, picturing the faces of those who had overlooked him. He told me he could not stop the thoughts. They came on their own, I told him. Nothing comes on its own. Every habitual thought was once a choice that was made so many times it became automatic. And what becomes automatic can be interrupted, redirected, and replaced. But it requires ruthlessness, not discipline in the soft sense, ruthlessness. The kind that says, I will not allow this thought to complete itself. Not once, not today. I gave him a replacement. Every time the resentment arose, he was to immediately shift to a single image. Himself seated at a new desk, in a larger office, surrounded by evidence of recognition and respect. He was to feel the image, not just see it. Feel the quiet satisfaction of having arrived. Feel the ease of a man who knows his value is seen. He practiced this for 60 days without a single visible result. On the 61st day, a restructuring at his company created an opening that had not existed before. He was not just promoted. He was elevated 2 levels and placed in a position that had previously been held by someone with twice his years of experience. He called it timing. I called it impression finally reaching the threshold of expression. The subconscious does not hurry, but it does not fail. Once the impression is deep enough, the expression is inevitable. The only variable is whether you will hold the faith long enough to see it arrive. Now I want to share with you something I kept for only the most serious students. Something that separates those who hear this teaching and are moved by it from those who hear it and are actually changed by it. The subconscious is convinced not by words but by the marriage of word, image, and feeling. Any one of these alone is weak. 2 are stronger. But when all 3 unite, when you speak a decree and see the reality it describes and genuinely feel as though it is already true, the impression is irresistible. This is the science behind every miracle ever recorded. This is why some prayers are answered and others echo into silence. The answered prayer was never just words. It was a state, a complete inner certainty so total that the outer world had no choice but to conform. I taught my students a practice I called the evening impression. In the last 10 minutes before sleep, when the conscious mind begins to release its grip and the subconscious becomes most open and receptive, you must do 3 things simultaneously. First, speak your decree, not casually, slowly, deliberately, as though each word were being carved into stone. I am divinely guided. I prosper in all I undertake. Infinite intelligence opens every door before me. Second, see it. Behind closed eyes, build the picture, not a vague sketch, a vivid scene. The specific chair you will sit in, the specific feeling of the specific morning when the thing you desire has already arrived. Make it real in your imagination. Furnish it with detail. Third, feel it. This is the most important and the most difficult. Do not feel the hope of it arriving. Feel the relief, the satisfaction, the quiet joy of someone for whom it has already arrived. The subconscious is not moved by want. It is moved by the feeling of already having. This is the secret instruction. Those who practiced this faithfully reported changes in their lives that they could not explain by any ordinary means. Doors opened. People appeared. Circumstances reorganized themselves, not through magic, through law, the law of impression and expression that governs every life, every outcome, every apparent miracle, and every apparent curse. One of my students once asked me, how do I know if it is working? I told him to stop looking for the answer in the world outside him. The world is always the last to know. The first signal is internal. You will feel a shift in your inner state. The strain will ease. The desperation will quiet. A sense of settled certainty will replace the anxious reaching. When you feel that peace, that is the signal. The subconscious has accepted the impression. The expression has already begun. You simply cannot see it yet. Trust the peace. The peace is the proof. I also taught something in private about the danger of divided impressions. This is where most people unknowingly destroy their own results. They speak an affirmation in the morning. I am prosperous. I am healthy. I am guided. Then, for the rest of the day, they allow their thinking to return to the old patterns. They worry about money. They rehearse illness. They imagine the worst. And at night, they close their eyes, having given the subconscious far more hours of fear than of faith. The subconscious records everything. It does not score the morning affirmation above the 14 hours of anxious thinking that followed it. It simply reflects the dominant impression. And if fear is dominant, fear is what expresses. This is why I told my serious students, it is not enough to plant a seed in the morning. You must also refuse to uproot it for the rest of the day. Every moment of worry is a hand reaching into the soil. Every rehearsed disaster is the seed pulled out before it can take root. Vigilance is not optional. It is the price of transformation. Guard the gate. Every hour. Not perfectly, perfection is not required, but consistently. When the old thought rises, do not engage it, do not argue with it, do not give it the respect of your full attention. Simply replace it. Choose in that moment the new impression. Return to the image, return to the feeling, return to the decree, and continue. Do this enough times and something extraordinary happens. The new thought stops requiring effort. It becomes the default. The subconscious has been so thoroughly saturated with the new impression that the old one no longer has a home. And when the old fear returns, it feels foreign. It feels like something that belongs to a different person, a previous version of yourself that has been outgrown. That is the moment of permanent change, not the moment of first inspiration, not the moment of the first result. The moment when the new identity settles so deeply that the old one no longer recognizes you. This is what I wanted for every student. Not just a changed circumstance, a changed identity. Because changed circumstances can be reversed. A changed identity cannot. When you become, at the level of the subconscious, a person for whom health is natural, for whom abundance is expected, for whom success is simply the ordinary expression of who you are, nothing outside you can take that away. Now let me close this teaching the way I closed every private session, not with more information, with a command. The purpose of these words was never to give you something to think about. It was to give you something to do, tonight, before your eyes close. Before the day releases its hold on you and the subconscious opens fully to receive whatever you choose to give it, you now know what few people know. You know that the law is real, that it is already operating in your life with or without your conscious participation, and that the only question has ever been whether you will direct it deliberately or allow it to run on fear. You know that imagination is not idle, it is instruction. You know that feeling is the language the subconscious actually speaks. You know that the proof of true belief is not effort but peace. And that peace, when it comes, means the work is already done in the invisible. The visible is simply catching up, so tonight, before sleep, do not review your worries. Do not rehearse tomorrow's fears. Do not end the day with the same old prayers of desperation that have gone unanswered because they were never really prayers at all. They were confessions of doubt, and the subconscious heard every word. Tonight, give your subconscious something worth expressing. Say it now. Write it on paper if you must. Let it be the last impression of the day. I am guided by infinite intelligence. I prosper in everything I do. My body is renewed with divine vitality. Abundance flows to me freely and without effort. I am at peace. I am exactly where I am meant to be. And everything I desire is already on its way. Say it slowly. Feel the weight of each word. Build the picture behind your eyes. Let the feeling of already having arrived settle into your chest. Stay with it, not for an hour. For 10 minutes. 10 minutes of complete, deliberate, vivid impression. And then sleep. Let the subconscious take what you have given it and work through the night to make it real. Let it reach outward while you rest, drawing toward you everything that corresponds to what you have impressed. Let it arrange, organize, and prepare the outer world to match the inner decree you have made. You are not a victim of fate. You never were. You were the author of every chapter you did not like, which means you are also the author of every chapter still to come. The pen is yours. The subconscious is waiting. The law is ready. Write something magnificent. 27 p.m. Now I want to reveal something I saved for only the most prepared, something I hesitated to speak even in private. because its weight is enormous and its implications reach into every corner of a person's life. Most people believe that transformation is a gradual process. That change comes slowly through accumulated effort, through patience measured in years, and while patience is required, the actual moment of change is never gradual. It is instantaneous. The shift happens in a single moment of genuine impression. One moment the subconscious holds the old pattern. The next moment, if the impression is deep enough, vivid enough, felt with enough total conviction, the old pattern is replaced. Completely, permanently. The slowness that most people experience is not the law being slow. It is the impression being shallow. They are scratching the surface of the subconscious with a feather when what is required is an engraving. And the difference between a scratch and an engraving is not time. It is depth, and depth comes from feeling. This is why two people can practice the same affirmation for the same number of days and have completely different results. One speaks the words while secretly doubting them, while half watching their phone, while going through a motion they were told would work. The other speaks the words with the full weight of their imagination behind them, with a feeling so genuine it produces a physical response, a warmth in the chest, a loosening of tension, a moment of real inner knowing. The second person is engraving. The first is scratching, and only engravings produce expression. I told my private students, stop measuring your practice by time. Measure it by depth. 5 minutes of genuine, felt, vivid impression will do more for your life than 5 years of mechanical repetition. The law does not reward quantity. It rewards conviction. There was a man who came to me after 2 years of faithful affirmation practice with nothing to show for it. He was frustrated, nearly defeated, on the verge of concluding that the law was a lie. I asked him to demonstrate his practice for me. He closed his eyes and began to recite. The words were correct. The routine was disciplined. But his face was blank. His body was still. There was no flicker of feeling, no inner movement at all. He was reciting a grocery list with his eyes closed. I stopped him and asked one question. When you say the words, do you feel anything? He thought about it honestly and admitted, no. I just say them. I told him. Then you have not been practicing at all. You have been rehearsing the motion of practice. The subconscious was not even listening because the subconscious does not respond to sound. It responds to feeling, and you have given it none. I did not tell him to practice longer or harder. I told him to practice less, but to refuse to speak a single word until he could feel it, even if that meant sitting in silence for 10 minutes before a single decree was spoken. Even if it meant that some nights only one sentence was impressed, but that sentence landed with the full force of real conviction. He returned to me 6 weeks later visibly different. Not just in circumstance, though those had shifted too. Different in his bearing, in the quality of his presence. He had crossed the threshold from mechanical practice to genuine impression, and the subconscious had responded the way it always responds to a real command, with immediate and total obedience. This brings me to something else I taught behind closed doors that I want you to carry with you permanently. The subconscious has no loyalty to your current reality. People mistakenly believe that because something has been true for a long time, the subconscious is attached to it, protective of it, resistant to changing it. This is false. The subconscious has no preferences. It has no nostalgia. It does not look at your current circumstances and decide to preserve them. It simply expresses whatever is most dominantly impressed upon it right now. Your current reality is not a wall, it is a reflection, and a reflection changes the instant the thing being reflected changes. This is one of the most liberating truths I ever gave in private. It means there is no situation so long-standing that it cannot shift. It means poverty that has lasted decades is not locked in. It means illness that has been present for years is not permanent. It means relationships that have been cold and broken are not fixed in that condition. The moment the inner impression changes, the outer reflection must begin to change. It has no choice. It is not being stubborn. It was never attached to the old condition. It was simply mirroring it. Change the mirror and the image changes immediately. I worked with a woman who had lived in financial struggle for so long that lack had become invisible to her. She did not see it as a condition anymore. She saw it as a fact of nature, as fixed and unchallengeable as the weather. She had stopped believing that her financial life could be different because she had stopped even questioning whether it should be. Struggle was simply the texture of her existence. When I told her that this was not fate but impression, she did not feel hope. She felt anger. She said, "Are you telling me I chose this? Are you telling me I did this to myself?" I let her anger sit for a moment, and then I answered carefully, "I am not telling you that you chose it consciously. I am telling you that it was impressed unconsciously, and that makes all the difference. A child does not choose to absorb the fears and limitations of those who raised them. A person does not deliberately decide to believe they are unworthy of abundance. These impressions arrive silently through repetition, through the environment, through every comment about money they heard growing up, through every time they watched someone they loved struggle and concluded quietly, without words, that this is simply what life is. These impressions are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. And the moment you accept that responsibility, you are no longer a victim of your history. You become the author of your future." She sat with that for a long time. And when she finally spoke, her voice was different, quieter. Something had shifted. I gave her a single instruction. "Every night before sleep, I want you to feel what it would feel like to have enough. Not to be wealthy, not to have millions. Simply enough. The feeling of opening your eyes in the morning and knowing that all needs are met, that all is well, that provision is present and reliable. Just that feeling. Hold it for as long as you can before sleep takes you." She did this every night for 30 days. In the 4th week, unexpected income appeared from a source she had forgotten. In the 6th week, an opportunity arrived that solved a problem she had been carrying for 3 years. She did not win a lottery. She did not receive a miracle in the dramatic sense. What happened was quieter and more profound. The world around her simply began to reorganize itself to match the new impression she had been feeding her subconscious every night. The reflection had begun to change because the inner image had changed. She told me afterward that the strangest part was not the outer change. It was the inner one. Somewhere in those 30 days, without being able to identify a specific moment, she had stopped feeling afraid. The low constant hum of financial anxiety that had been the background noise of her entire adult life had simply gone quiet. And she realized, only in its absence, how much of her energy it had been consuming. How much of her creativity, her confidence, her joy had been buried under it. When it lifted, she described feeling like herself for the first time in decades. That is the hidden gift inside the law that no one talks about. The outer results get the attention, but the inner freedom is the real transformation. Now I want to tell you about the law of the spoken decree, specifically because this is something I gave only to students who had already demonstrated they could handle it without abusing it. Words spoken aloud carry a different weight than words thought silently. When you speak a decree out loud, when your own ears hear your own voice, speaking the truth you intend to impress, something is added to the impression. The body receives it differently. The nervous system participates. The breath carries the vibration. And the subconscious, receiving the impression through multiple channels simultaneously, accepts it with greater speed and permanence. This is why the spoken word has been treated as sacred in every spiritual tradition in human history. This is why certain cultures believed that to name something was to call it into being. They were not being primitive or superstitious. They were observing, without scientific vocabulary, the same law I am describing now. The spoken word, clothed in feeling and delivered with conviction, is among the most powerful tools of impression available to you. But it is also a sword, and a sword can cut in both directions. Every careless word spoken aloud is also received by the subconscious with greater force than a thought alone. This is why I warned my students more sternly about spoken words than about thoughts. Thoughts can be caught and replaced before they fully land. but a word spoken aloud in a moment of frustration, in a moment of defeat, in a moment of unguarded honesty about how tired and beaten and finished you feel. That word lands hard, it lands deep, and the subconscious, loyal and impartial, records it and begins to build accordingly. I am finished. I cannot do this anymore. Nothing ever works for me. I am always the one who loses. These are not expressions of frustration. These are commands. The subconscious does not hear your tone. It does not know you were venting. It hears the decree and it answers it. And when it answers it, when you find yourself surrounded by yet more evidence that nothing works and you are always the one who loses, you believe fate has confirmed what you suspected. You do not see that you wrote the decree. You do not see that the world is simply reading it back to you. Catch the words. Catch them before they leave your mouth. And if they have already left, if in a moment of weakness the old decree was spoken, do not compound it with guilt and self-attack. Simply override it, immediately, out loud, with a new decree spoken with even greater conviction than the one you are replacing. That is finished. It has no power over me. I speak only what I choose to see expressed. I am guided. I am provided for. I move forward with perfect clarity and total confidence. Say it like you mean it, because you do mean it, and because the subconscious, hearing the new decree delivered with force and feeling, will accept it as the dominant command and release the old one. You have more control than you have been told. You have always had more control than you have been told. The only thing that was ever limiting you was the impression you held of yourself, and that impression is not carved in stone. It is carved in belief, and belief can be changed in a single moment of genuine decision. That moment can be right now. This is what I wanted most for my students, not just the understanding of the law, but the lived experience of standing at the exact moment of choice and choosing differently than they ever had before. Choosing faith over the evidence of their senses, choosing abundance over the familiarity of lack, choosing the imagined reality over the inherited one. That choice, made once with full conviction, changes everything. Made daily, it changes a life permanently. So tonight I give you a final private teaching to carry with you, one that I only shared when I felt that the student in front of me was truly ready to receive not just information but transformation. You are not building toward something. You are not on a journey toward a destination that exists somewhere in the future. The life you desire does not live in the future. It lives in the impression. And the impression can be made right now, tonight, in the next 10 minutes, before you close your eyes. The moment the impression is made with genuine conviction, the life you want has already begun. You cannot see it yet. The outer world is still displaying the old reflection. But inside, in the invisible architecture of cause that precedes all effect, the new reality is already assembled, already certain, already inevitable. It is simply moving from the inner to the outer, from the impressed to the expressed, and nothing in the universe can stop that movement once the impression is real. This is the private truth I saved for the few. Not that transformation is possible, but that it is already done the moment you truly believe it is. So believe it. Speak it now, slowly, with the full weight of your conviction behind every word. I am renewed. I am guided by infinite intelligence. Every door I need opens before me. Abundance is my natural state. Health is my inheritance. Peace governs my mind and harmony surrounds my life. My subconscious accepts this completely and my life expresses it now, not tomorrow. Now write it on paper. Place it where your eyes will find it before sleep. Speak it into the silence of your room tonight as though speaking it for the first and last time, as though these words are the turning point you have been waiting your entire life to reach. Because they are. You were not brought to these words casually. Something in you recognized them. Something deeper than your conscious mind was already leaning forward before the first sentence was finished. That recognition is the subconscious signaling that it is ready. That it has always been ready. That it was only waiting for you to give it the right command. The command has been given. Now watch what the law does with it. There is one final truth I never spoke from any pulpit, never wrote in any book, never shared in any public gathering regardless of how many thousands sat before me waiting. It was the last thing I told a student before they left my presence for the final time. A parting gift, a closing key. The thing I believed, if they carried nothing else, would be enough. Are you ready to receive it? Good. Because this is not the kind of truth you simply hear and file away. This is the kind that lands somewhere below thought, below language, in the place where your deepest beliefs about yourself and life and what is possible for you actually live. And when it lands there, when it truly settles into that deep place, you will feel something shift, not dramatically, not with noise, quietly. The way a lock opens, the way a held breath finally releases, the way morning arrives not all at once, but suddenly and completely present when you finally look up and notice it. Here it is. You have never been separated from the source of everything you desire. Not for a single moment. Not in your worst year, your darkest night, your most defeated hour. The infinite intelligence that created this world and governs its laws and holds every atom in its precise position has never withdrawn from you, never turned away, never decided that you were the exception to its abundance. The separation you felt was never real. It was only an impression, a belief held so long and so deeply that it generated a life that looked like proof. But proof is not truth. Proof is only the current reflection of the current impression. And impressions change. This is what I wanted every student to carry out into their life. Not a technique, not a method, not a morning routine or an evening practice, though these matter, but a fundamental, settled, unshakable knowing that they were never cut off from what they needed, that the supply was never limited, that the intelligence guiding this universe was not rationing its gifts, not playing favorites, not rewarding the deserving and punishing the rest. It was simply expressing always and only what was impressed upon it. It was simply being the faithful mirror it has always been, and you all along were simply someone who had been given a distorted mirror early in life and had been staring into it ever since, mistaking the distortion for reality. I sat once with a man in the final weeks of his life, not a student seeking success or wealth or healing, a man who simply wanted to understand why. Why had his life taken the shape it did? Why had certain things never come? Why had he carried certain weights for so long without relief? I did not give him affirmations. I did not teach him visualization. I simply sat with him and told him the truth that I am telling you now. The life you lived was the perfect and precise expression of what you believed in the deepest room of yourself. Not what you wanted, not what you deserved, what you believed. And belief is not chosen consciously, it is absorbed, inherited, accumulated through years of experience, interpreted through the filters of a young and impressionable mind. You were not wrong to believe what you believed. You were simply human. And every human carries impressions they did not choose and cannot remember receiving. He was quiet for a long time. And then he said something I have carried with me ever since, he said. Then it was never fate. It was always just the echo of what I held inside. Yes, that is exactly what it was. And the mercy in that truth, the profound and devastating mercy, is that an echo can be changed. The moment you change what you speak into the canyon, the echo changes, immediately. Completely, without negotiation and without delay. He closed his eyes, and I watched something leave his face. Some long-held tension, some argument he had been having with his own life for decades. It simply released. Because the truth, when it finally lands in the right place, does not produce more struggle. It produces surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, the surrender of a man who has finally stopped fighting the river and allowed it to carry him. That is what I want for you. Not more effort, not more discipline in the grinding, white-knuckled sense, but the effortless power of a person who has stopped arguing with the law and started working with it, who has stopped treating the subconscious as an obstacle and started treating it as the ally it has always been, who has stopped praying from a place of desperate lack and started impressing from a place of settled certainty. There is a quality of inner life available to you that most people never touch. Not because it is rare, Not because it is reserved for the spiritual elite or the naturally gifted or those who were born into the right circumstances, but because it requires a willingness to release the story of your limitation so completely that you stop finding evidence for it. You stop rehearsing it. You stop introducing yourself with it. You stop building your identity around the chapters of your life that hurt. You simply let it go. Not all at once, not perfectly, but progressively, deliberately, with the patient ruthlessness of someone who has decided that the old story no longer has a place at the table. And in its place you build something new. Not a fantasy, not a denial of reality, a new impression, specific, vivid, felt, and repeated until it sinks so far below the surface of conscious thought that it becomes the new bedrock, the new assumption, the new thing you believe without knowing you believe it, the way you once believed in your limitation without knowing you believed in that either. When that new bedrock is laid, your life will begin to reflect it the way still water reflects the sky, perfectly, completely, without effort or resistance. This is the private teaching in its fullness, not a collection of techniques. A single truth delivered in different languages across every session, every private conversation, every quiet evening with a student who was finally ready to hear it. You are not broken. You were never broken. You were only misdirected. And the moment you redirect the most powerful force inside you, the moment you turn the full sovereign authority of your deliberate belief toward what you truly desire, the law that has always governed your life will begin to work visibly, unmistakably, and joyfully in your favor. I have watched this happen too many times to hold any doubt about it. The sick made well, the poor made abundant, the lonely surrounded with genuine love, the defeated rising with a quality of strength that surprised even themselves. Not because I gave them something extraordinary, but because I helped them remove what was ordinary, the ordinary fear, the ordinary doubt, the ordinary habit of believing the worst about themselves and then calling the result fate. Remove that. Only that, and what remains is extraordinary by nature. Because what remains, once the false impressions are cleared, is a mind connected to infinite intelligence, a subconscious aligned with the creative force of the universe, and a life poised to express abundance in every direction. That is who you are beneath the accumulated weight of what you were told, and what you experienced, and what you concluded about yourself in moments of pain. That is who you have always been, and that is who I am speaking to right now. Not the version of you that is tired or doubtful or quietly convinced that transformation is for other people. The version beneath that. The one that is still there, still listening, still refusing to fully give up on the possibility that something can change. That version is the truth of you. And it is that truth that the subconscious will express the moment you give it full permission. Give it permission tonight. Not tomorrow. Not after the next difficulty has passed or the next fear has been resolved. Tonight, in exactly the condition you are in, with exactly the doubts you carry and the history you have and the uncertainties that have not yet been answered. You do not need to be fearless to make this impression. You only need to be willing. Willing to speak the decree anyway. Willing to build the image anyway. Willing to feel, even for just a few moments, the reality of what you are calling forth, even while the outer world has not yet caught up. That willingness is enough. It has always been enough, because the law does not require your perfection. It only requires your impression. And an impression made in willingness, held in sincerity, and repeated in faith is the most powerful command the subconscious ever receives. So let this be your final decree. The one you carry not just tonight but forward into every morning and every evening and every moment of quiet in between. Let it be so familiar in your mouth that it requires no thought. Let it be so deeply impressed that it becomes the automatic background hum of your inner life, replacing the old hum of fear and doubt that you have carried long enough. Say it now. Say it aloud. Let your own ears receive it. Let your body feel it. Let the image rise behind your eyes, and let the feeling of its truth settle into your chest like something coming home. I am never separated from infinite intelligence. I am guided, sustained, and provided for in all things. My subconscious is now impressed with health, abundance, harmony, and peace. These are not wishes. They are the truth of who I am and what my life expresses. The law is at work. The impression is made. The expression is inevitable. I receive it now with gratitude and with complete certainty. Write it. Keep it. Return to it every time the old voice rises with its familiar arguments about why not and why you and why ever. Return to it especially then, because that is when the decree matters most, not when life is easy and the evidence is already in your favor. But in the moment of doubt, in the moment when everything visible is still reflecting the old impression and the new one has not yet appeared in your circumstances, that is the test. And that is the moment that separates those who know the law from those who live it. Live it. From this night forward, live it. Guard your inner speech with the seriousness of someone who finally understands what it costs to be careless. Tend the fire of your subconscious with the reverence of someone who knows what it is capable of creating. And rest. Rest in the certainty that the law does not fail, that what is impressed must be expressed, that the harvest of a genuine and sustained impression is not a maybe or a possibility, but a certainty as reliable as sunrise. You were brought to these words for a reason. The reason is this: you are ready, not almost ready, not getting there, ready. Right now, in this moment, with everything you carry and everything you are and everything you have yet to become. The subconscious is listening. It has always been listening. Now tell it something worth expressing.